All right. So, you know how we're always talking about finding authentic ways to learn languages?
Yeah.
And it always seems like textbooks are kind of like they never quite capture how people actually talk, right?
Yeah, they can be a little too polished.
Exactly.
Like, who actually speaks that formally in real life, right?
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
I love it.
We're going to look at how those real conversations,
Yeah.
like the kind you'd hear at a cafe or maybe like a bustling market,
Oh, yeah.
those can be absolutely like gold for language learning.
Absolutely.
And get this, pairing them with subtitles can really supercharge the whole process.
That's right. It's like the difference between studying a map
Yeah.
and actually exploring a city,
Oh, I like that.
Textbooks, they give you the grammar, the vocab lists, but real conversations, that's where you learn to navigate the nuances, the slang, all that cultural context.
It's like the street smarts of language.
Exactly.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you on the authentic dialogue part, but I gotta be honest, I've always been a little bit, I don't know,
Yeah.
skeptical of subtitles.
I hear you.
I always thought they were more for accessibility,
Yeah.
not really active learning.
I think a lot of people think that, but think of subtitles as more than just words on a screen.
Okay.
They're a powerful tool that taps into dual coding theory.
Dual coding theory, now that sounds fancy.
It's actually pretty simple. So by seeing and hearing the language at the same time, you're creating two distinct pathways for that information to stick in your brain.
So it's not just about catching what I might miss, it's about making those connections
Right.
between the spoken and the written forms.
Exactly. And subtitles can also be super helpful for deciphering those tricky situations.
Okay.
Fast talkers, regional accents, slang, you won't find in a textbook.
Oh, yeah?
It's like having a real-time translator in your pocket, but way cooler.
All right, you've definitely piqued my interest. I'm starting to see the light here.
Good.
But let's say I'm sold on this whole real-life dialogues with subtitles thing.
How do I actually put it into practice?
First things first, ditch the boring stuff.
Yeah.
Find content that genuinely speaks to you.
Okay.
Whether it's a foreign film, a podcast, even YouTube videos.
Right.
If you're not engaged, you won't stick with it.
So, if I'm a true crime junkie, I should be looking for, documentaries or podcasts in my target language.
Exactly.
Instead of forcing myself to watch operas.
Precisely. You want to make language learning a natural extension of your interests, not a chore.
Makes sense. And once I've found my content, what then?
Don't be afraid to get repetitive with it. So it's about more than just understanding the words. It's about embodying the way native speakers actually use them.
It's a powerful way to internalize those subtle nuances that make a language come alive.
That's cool. And you know what I was thinking about the other day?
What's that?
What about using transcripts?
Oh, yeah. Transcripts can be really helpful, especially if you're already comfortable with the basics.
Yeah.
The point is seeing the words written out, especially for those tricky sections. It helps you analyze those speech patterns on a deeper level.
So it's like taking shadowing to the next level.
Exactly.
You're not just mimicking, you're breaking down the mechanics of the language.
That's right. And while you're at it, don't underestimate the power of taking notes.
You mean like old school pen and paper?
It could be pen and paper. It could be on your phone, whatever works for you.
Okay.
Create your own personalized language journal.
Okay.
Jot down interesting phrases, slang, anything you want to remember.
Ooh, I like that idea. It's like creating a treasure trove of language nuggets I can pull from later.
Exactly. And finally, remember, language is about connection.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Find a language partner or an online community to practice what you've learned from these real-life dialogues.
So it's about taking those insights from the screen and bringing them into real-world conversations.
Exactly. You're not just absorbing the language passively. You're actively using it, making it your own.
This has been eye-opening.
I know, right?
We've gone from textbook dialogues to real-life conversations.
Yeah.
From subtitles as a crutch to subtitles as a powerful learning tool.
That's a whole new approach.
It feels like a whole new approach to language learning.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Whoa, there's more.
There's so much more to explore, especially when it comes to choosing the right content and overcoming common challenges.
Oh, I bet.
But we'll save that for later in the deep dive.
Okay, I'm definitely hooked.
Good.
But before we dive deeper,
Yeah.
I think it's important to acknowledge that language learning, no matter the method, can feel daunting at times.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It definitely can be.
Like sometimes it feels like I'm hitting a wall.
It's natural to feel that way, and that's where the source we're looking at today offers some valuable advice.
Okay, what's that?
It stresses the importance of starting small and celebrating those small wins along the way.
I remember when I first started learning Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
I tried to jump into these complex novels way too soon,
Oh, yeah.
and I ended up feeling completely overwhelmed.
It's a common mistake. We often set unrealistic expectations for ourselves, especially when we're excited to learn a new language.
I was so eager to be fluent.
I get it. But the key is to remember that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
So instead of diving into a sea of complex grammar and vocabulary,
Right.
we should start with a paddling pool, so to speak.
Exactly. I think children's books, songs with catchy lyrics, even those simple phrases used in everyday interactions.
Yeah.
It's about building a solid foundation and gradually increasing the complexity as you gain confidence.
Makes sense. And I guess that ties into the whole don't be afraid to make mistakes thing.
Absolutely. Mistakes are inevitable, and they're actually a crucial part of the learning process.
Yeah.
It's through those stumbles that we identify our weaknesses and figure out what we need to work on.
So instead of seeing them as failures, we should see them as stepping stones.
Exactly. And remember, even native speakers make mistakes sometimes.
Really?
Language is a fluid, evolving thing, and there's no such thing as perfection.
I love that it takes the pressure off.
Right.
So for all our listeners out there who might be feeling discouraged, remember, it's okay to start small, embrace those mistakes, and celebrate those small victories along the way.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And we'll be right here with you, exploring more insights and practical tips in the rest of this deep dive.
Can't wait. Welcome back. It's one thing to talk about, like, the theory behind this whole thing, using real-life dialogues and subtitles, but it's way more compelling to actually hear how this plays out in reality.
Oh, for sure. The source we're looking at has some incredible stories from language learners who've seen amazing results using this method.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready to be inspired.
Get ready for some serious aha moments.
All right, hit me.
One thing that really struck me was how many people talked about finally feeling confident, speaking their target language.
Interesting.
They went from, like, stiff and robotic to actually enjoying conversations.
That's the dream, right?
Totally, to go beyond textbook phrases and sound like a native speaker.
Yeah, but how did these real-life dialogues make such a difference?
It's about internalizing the natural flow of the language.
Okay.
One learner described it like they used to overthink every sentence, trying to apply grammar rules perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Been there.
But after immersing themselves in those authentic conversations, they started to feel the language more intuitively.
So it's like learning to dance by watching people on the dance floor.
Yes.
Instead of just reading the steps in a book.
Exactly. You pick up the rhythm, the improvisation, the subtle cues.
I love that analogy. And you know what else I was thinking about?
What's that?
Those tricky idioms.
Oh, yeah.
And slang expressions we talked about before.
Right. Those are tough.
Textbooks just don't capture the humor and the cultural context behind those.
Nope, they really don't.
It's like everyone's in on a joke except for me.
I know exactly what you mean, but when you hear those idioms and slang phrases used naturally, you start to understand the nuances.
Yeah.
The unspoken rules.
It's like finally being let in on the secret.
Exactly. And I bet this also has a huge impact on listening comprehension.
Oh, definitely. It's one thing to understand, like, isolated words.
Right.
But it's another thing entirely to follow along with those, like, rapid-fire conversations.
Absolutely. Several learners talked about how their listening skills just skyrocketed.
Wow.
After consistently exposing themselves to real-life dialogues, they were no longer getting lost in the flow of speech.
That's impressive. Okay, but what about the subtitles? Did people find them helpful or more of a distraction?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
A lot of learners said that subtitles actually made the whole process more enjoyable. It took away some of the pressure of trying to catch every single word.
Yeah, I can see that.
And allow them to focus on the overall meaning and context.
It's like having a safety net, especially when you're starting out.
Exactly. You can relax, enjoy the story, and still absorb the language subconsciously.
And for those who are, like, more visually oriented, subtitles can be a total game changer.
Absolutely. They provide that visual anchor, that extra layer of reinforcement.
So it's not about relying on subtitles as a crutch.
Right.
It's about using them strategically to enhance the learning experience.
Exactly. And it's not just beginners who benefit. Even advanced learners mentioned using subtitles.
Oh, wow.
To fine-tune their pronunciation, pick up new vocabulary,
Interesting.
even analyze those subtle ways native speakers use grammar in everyday speech.
So it's like having a language coach.
Yeah.
Built right into your viewing experience.
Exactly. You can pause, rewind, and really dissect those tricky parts.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
I'm listening.
Some learners even talked about using subtitles to improve their writing skills.
Oh, that's cool. How does that work?
By paying attention to how punctuation is used,
Yeah,
how sentences are structured, how ideas are connected,
that makes sense.
they were able to internalize the written conventions of the language more effectively.
So subtitles are like a secret weapon
Yeah.
for all aspects of language learning, listening, speaking, even writing.
You never thought of it that way before.
It's about shifting our perspective.
Yeah.
Seeing subtitles not as a shortcut, but as a powerful tool
Yeah.
that can unlock new levels of understanding and fluency.
These stories are so inspiring.
I know, right?
It's amazing to see how people are using this approach to achieve their language learning goals.
It's really cool. But let's bring this back to our listeners.
No, it's a good idea.
What's the takeaway message here?
Yeah, what do we want them to do with this information?
The key takeaway is this real-life dialogues paired with subtitles
Yeah.
can revolutionize how we approach language learning.
It's about making the process engaging, enjoyable, and most importantly, effective.
Exactly. It's about moving away from those dry textbooks
Ugh, textbook dialogue.
and embracing the vibrant, messy beauty of authentic conversations.
Yes. And seeing those everyday interactions,
Right, what?
watching a film, listening to a podcast, even just scrolling through social media as opportunities for language immersion.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah.
Try different types of content.
Yeah.
Play around with different ways of using subtitles. Find what works best for you.
It's your language journey. You get to be the captain of your own ship.
I love that analogy. But before we set sail on our own language adventures,
Okay.
I think it's important to address the elephant in the room.
Oh, what's that?
What about those times when we hit a plateau,
Yeah.
when the motivation dips, when the grammar rules feel like they're multiplying overnight?
Oh, yeah. Those are the worst.
Those are totally natural parts of the process.
Okay. Good to know.
And the source we're exploring has some great advice on how to navigate those challenges.
All right. I'm all ears.
One of the most powerful pieces of advice is don't be afraid to ask for help.
It seems so simple, but we often forget that we don't have to go it alone.
Right.
Where can learners find that support?
It could be a language partner, a tutor, an online community,
Yeah.
even a friend who's learning the same language.
Okay.
Having someone to practice with, to bounce ideas off of, to celebrate wins with, can make all the difference.
It's about creating a support system, a network of people who understand the joys and frustrations of language learning.
Exactly. And sometimes all it takes is a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
A new approach or a reminder of why you started this journey in the first place.
To reignite that passion.
Exactly. It's about remembering that language learning is a journey, not a destination.
I like that.
There will be bumps along the way,
For sure.
but the rewards of connecting with other cultures, expanding your worldview, and expressing yourself in a new language are well worth the effort.
Beautifully said. Okay, so we've talked about the why. Now let's dive into the how.
Let's get practical.
I'm ready. Okay, so we've talked about the why behind using real-life dialogues and subtitles for language learning, but now let's dive into the how.
Let's get practical.
I'm ready. Give me those actionable strategies.
All right, so first things first, choosing the right content.
Yeah, because it's easy to get overwhelmed with all the options out there.
Exactly. You want to strike a balance between something you enjoy
Okay.
and something that challenges you just enough.
Makes sense.
So you're a complete beginner.
Yeah.
Diving into a political thriller might not be the best starting point.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely made that mistake before.
It's like trying to run a marathon without learning to walk first.
So true. So what are some good entry points for those just starting out?
Think children's shows, animated films, music with catchy lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
The language is often simplified, but still authentic.
Okay.
And you can pick up a surprising amount of vocabulary and grammar.
And there's the added bonus of visuals, which can really help with comprehension.
Exactly. As you progress, you can gradually increase the complexity.
Okay. So...
Maybe try sitcoms, cooking shows, vlogs on topics that interest you.
Gotcha.
The key is to find content that keeps you engaged and coming back for more.
And don't forget about those language learning apps and websites.
Right?
They often have curated content specifically for different levels.
True. They can be a great resource, especially for finding transcripts and interactive exercises.
Yeah, to complement your real-life dialogue practice. Okay, so we've got our content sorted. What about the subtitles themselves? Any tips on how to use them effectively?
Experimenter. Some learners prefer watching with subtitles in their native language first
Oh, interesting.
to get the gist of the story, then switching to target language subtitles for a deeper dive.
That's a good strategy for building comprehension gradually. What about those moments when we stumble on a word or phrase we don't understand? Should we pause and look it up every time?
That can disrupt the flow, and you don't want to turn language learning into a tedious vocabulary drill.
Right.
Instead, try to infer the meaning from the context.
It's like solving a puzzle, right?
Exactly, using the surrounding words and the visuals to piece together the meaning.
And if you're still unsure, jot it down in your language journal.
Exactly.
Look up later. Don't be afraid to rewind and rewatch tricky sections.
Repetition is key.
Yeah, and this approach allows for that in a natural way. But what about actually speaking the language?
Yeah.
How can we go beyond passive listening and start using what we've learned?
That's where those shadowing techniques we talked about earlier come in.
Oh yeah, shadowing.
Find a short segment of dialogue you enjoy, turn on those subtitles, and try to mimic the speaker as closely as possible.
Okay.
It's about embodying the language, not just understanding it intellectually.
And having those subtitles there helps us see the words as we're trying to reproduce those sounds.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And don't worry about sounding perfect at first.
Right.
It's about getting comfortable with the rhythm, the intonation, the unique sounds of the language.
Like training our mouths to move in new ways.
Exactly. And as you gain confidence, you can start incorporating those phrases and expressions you've learned into your own conversations.
So find a language exchange partner, join an online community, or even just chat with yourself in the mirror.
Exactly. It's about taking those language nuggets from the screen and bringing them into real-life interactions.
And remember, even small steps count. Maybe it's using a new word in a text message.
Yeah.
Or ordering your coffee in your target language.
Those small victories can have a huge impact on your motivation.
For sure, they keep you going. This has been such an insightful deep dive.
I agree.
We've gone from feeling intimidated by real-life dialogues to seeing them as a powerful tool for language acquisition.
It's a whole new world.
And we've learned that subtitles, far from being a crutch, can actually enhance and accelerate the learning process.
It's about reframing our perspective
Yeah.
and embracing those opportunities that surround us every day.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to take these strategies and make them your own. Experiment, have fun, and remember that the most important thing is to simply start. Choose a piece of content you enjoy, turn on those subtitles, and embark on your own language learning adventure.
The world is your language lab. Go explore it.